Chapter 15. Tempered Steel. The corrosive reagent hit my theoretical papers at midnight. I'd been in the library until closing, finishing 3 weeks of research on advanced reality anchor mathematics. The papers were perfect, comprehensive, due at dawn. I returned to my quarters to find them destroyed. Black chemical burns eating through the pages. The text dissolving as I watched. Months of work becoming illegible sludge. The reagent was still wet, still active, eating through paper and ink with methodical efficiency. Millicent Ashwood had combat theory class in the laboratory wing. Had access to corrosive reagents. Had been watching me leave the library. The calculation was obvious. I stared at the ruined papers until my vision blurred. 3 weeks of research. Gone. I'd have to resubmit from memory. Reconstruct everything. Hope the theoretical framework was still accurate without my notes. The old Liv would have cried. Would have apologized somehow. Found a way to make this her fault. I felt nothing but cold rage. The next morning, I submitted what I could reconstruct. It wasn't as good, wasn't complete. Master Theron marked it adequate with obvious disappointment. I said nothing, just accepted the reduced grade and moved on. The equipment room incident happened 2 days later. I was cleaning my practice weapons after combat class. The narrow space between weapon racks barely fit 2 people. I was alone. Then Leanna Greystone filled the doorway. She was bigger than me. Taller, broader, built like someone who'd grown up doing physical labor. Her presence in the confined space felt deliberately intimidating.
Harrow?
She stepped inside, closer than necessary.
We need to talk.
I set down the sword I'd been cleaning. Kept my hands visible. About what?
Your future here.
She leaned against the weapon rack, blocking the only exit.
You should transfer to another academy. Things are going to get much worse for you here.
Is that a threat?
It's friendly advice.
Her smile had no warmth.
You're not wanted. You don't fit. The harder you try to stay, the more painful this becomes.
For who? Me or Seraphina? Her expression hardened.
Transfer, Harrow, or disappear. Your choice.
She pushed past me on her way out. Hard enough that I stumbled, my shoulder hitting the weapon rack with force that would leave bruises. I stood there after she left, breathing carefully, controlling the rage that wanted to manifest as uncontrolled chaos. The old Liv would have been afraid. I was just tired. Cassia's new rumor started circulating that afternoon.
Did you hear about the city rescue?
Her sweet voice carried through the common room.
Apparently, Liv deliberately endangered those children so she could play hero with Instructor Ashforge. The whole thing was staged, just desperate attention-seeking.
I was sitting close enough to hear. Didn't react. Just kept reading my magical theory text.
That's horrible.
Another voice said. Right on cue.
Using children like that.
I know, but some people will do anything for attention, especially when they're trying to seduce an instructor.
The lie was absurd. Anyone who'd been in Corvus City would know I hadn't staged anything. The chaos vents, the monsters, the reality breaking down. All real. All deadly. But repetition gave weight to lies. Soon, students were whispering about the convenient emergency, about manufactured crisis, about manipulation through fake heroics. I closed my book, stood, walked to where Cassia sat with her group. Everyone knows you're lying, I said. Quiet, level. The only question is whether you're doing it because Seraphina told you to, or because you're a coward who needs to tear others down to feel important. Cassia's sweet mask cracked. Genuine anger flashing through.
How dare you?
Which is it, Cassia? Following orders or personal cowardice? She stood. We faced each other across the common room. Everyone watching now.
You're nothing.
She hissed.
Nobody from nowhere. You don't belong here.
Maybe not, but at least I'm not a puppet. I walked away. Felt her rage following me like heat. Felt the shocked silence of the watching students. The old Liv would never have confronted anyone directly. I was discovering I liked the feeling. One, training became actively dangerous. The paired exercise was standard. Severing storm coordination with an assigned cleaver. I'd done this hundreds of times. My partner was a legacy student named Devon. Competent enough. No obvious hostility. I started weaving the binding framework. Careful, precise, creating the structure for him to activate with his ash. He channeled early. The feedback hit like lightning. His ash slamming into my incomplete binding, creating dissonance that made my channels burn like acid. I gasped, losing the weave, feeling magic backfire through my system. The pain was immediate and overwhelming.
Sorry.
Devon said. Not sorry.
Timing mistake.
I looked at him, saw the calculation in his eyes, saw Serafina watching from across the training yard with satisfaction. The injury was minor. Channel strain. Nothing that required investigation. But severe enough that casting hurt for days. Severe enough that I spent 2 days in medical getting healing magic. Severe enough to send a message. The dining hall incident was worse. Someone spiked my water. I didn't notice until halfway through the meal. Didn't know anything was wrong until my emotions started swinging wildly. Joy, despair, rage, terror. All of them flooding through me simultaneously. The ink buildup accelerating beyond control. I made it to medical before I started dissolving. The healers sedated me, held me stable while whatever I'd ingested worked through my system. When I woke, they explained someone had dosed me with a substance that amplified ink accumulation.
Could have killed you.
The head healer said.
If you'd been alone. If the build-up had gone unchecked.
Who would do that? I asked, knowing the answer.
That's under investigation.
It wasn't. Everyone knew. No one could prove it. I returned to my quarters 2 days later to find more things missing. My focus crystals, my practice weapons, small items that added up to significant handicaps. Then I realized my journal was gone. The new one. The private one. Where I'd written everything. My fears. My dreams. My poetry about crystalline eyes and winter-cold ash. My admission that I was falling for someone planning to die. The violation made my chest tight. Made breathing difficult. Someone had my most vulnerable words. Was probably reading them now. Laughing at them. Sharing them with others. I sat on my bed and stared at the empty space where the journal had been. The old Liv would have broken. Would have cried until she couldn't breathe. I felt something harden instead. Something that had been soft becoming steel. They wanted to break me. Wanted me to quit, to transfer, to disappear. I wasn't going anywhere. The shift happened gradually. Then all at once. During a paired exercise, Marcus deliberately mistimed his channeling. Again, creating dissonance. Again, making coordination impossible. Again, I stopped weaving. let the spell fail completely. Stood there with empty hands while Master Theron assessed the failure.
Harrow, your inability to maintain coordination suggests
I can't synchronize with a partner who's sabotaging the casting deliberately. I interrupted, met her eyes, level, unflinching. Assign me someone who actually wants to learn. The training yard went silent. Master Theron's expression was unreadable.
That's quite an accusation.
It's an observation. Marcus has deliberately mistimed every casting we've attempted. Either his fundamentals are catastrophically inadequate, or he's doing it on purpose. Given that he's a legacy student with years of training, I'm assuming the latter. Marcus's face flushed.
I don't have to listen to this from some...
From some what? I asked. Say it. Let's all hear what you really think. He didn't, just glared. Master Theron studied us both.
Harrow. Punishment exercises. 500 reality anchor repetitions. Marcus. You're reassigned to remedial fundamentals. If your timing is as inadequate as Harrow suggests, you need additional training.
The punishment was worth it. Because I saw respect flicker in Master Theron's expression. Saw her reassess me in that moment. The old Liv would have apologized. Would have taken the blame. Would have made herself smaller to avoid conflict. I was done being small. Cassia tried her sweet-faced rumor routine again the next day. Started spinning some new lie about my family, about merchant corruption, about something that didn't matter. I walked past her, didn't engage, didn't argue, just said loud enough for everyone to hear, if Seraphina has something to say to me, she can say it herself. Doesn't need puppets. Cassia's mask slipped completely. She grabbed my arm, hard.
Listen, you little...
I looked at her hand, then at her face. You're touching me. Remove your hand or I will. She didn't. I wove chaos threads around her wrist. Nothing dangerous. Just uncomfortable. Just enough pressure to make her release me. She stumbled back. Shocked. Angry. Humiliated in front of witnesses. I walked away feeling something like power. The old Liv would have been terrified of confrontation. I was discovering I had teeth. Dane's shift was subtle, harder to quantify. He still maintained professional distance in class. Still treated me like any other student publicly. But something had changed. His corrections became teaching moments.
Your timing is off,
He said during forms practice. Then instead of moving on,
You're initiating the binding before the cleaver establishes structure. Watch.
he demonstrated, slowly, showing me exactly where to align my casting.
The ash needs to anchor first. Your chaos then flows through established channels. Try again.
I tried. Got it right this time.
Better.
He said, then moved to the next student. 2 words, but they landed like benediction. After a particularly brutal session where I executed a complex reality anchor despite exhaustion, he paused beside me. His hand caught my wrist, turned my palm upward. His touch was clinical, professional, but his fingers lingered a fraction too long. He was checking my channels. I could feel his ash probing gently, assessing the pathways where magic flowed.
Your channels are expanding.
He said, quiet, just loud enough for me to hear.
You're getting stronger. You can handle more ink buildup now.
His thumb traced one of the black marks on my forearm. The touch sent heat racing up my arm despite the coldness of his ash. Then his eyes met mine. Crystal and gold. Burning with desire so intense it made my breath catch. The professional mask cracked completely for just a moment. Raw hunger, desperate need. Everything he'd been suppressing laid bare. His lips barely moved. The words almost soundless. So quiet I had to read them as much as hear them.
Soon we can try casting ritual convergence spells.
Ritual convergence. Advanced magic that required deep synchronization. Extended casting times. Prolonged connection. The kind of spells that would make Radiant Cage feel tame by comparison. My heart hammered against my ribs. Then he released my wrist. The mask slammed back into place. Professional distance reasserted with visible effort.
Good work, Harrow.
Normal volume. Clinical tone.
Continue practicing.
He moved to the next student. Back to instruction. Back to pretending nothing had happened. But my wrist burned where he'd touched me. And those whispered words echoed in my head for days. Soon, the promise and threat wrapped into a single word. I caught him watching me sometimes, when he thought I wasn't looking. His crystalline eyes tracking my movements with intensity that made my skin prickle. The hunger was still there. Obvious in unguarded moments. The way his gaze lingered. The way his jaw tightened when we worked together. The careful distance he maintained like proximity might break his control. I felt it too. Constant, burning. The memory of Radiant Cage haunted me. That perfect merging. That consciousness-splitting connection where we'd become one. I craved it with intensity that bordered on madness. Craved him with equal desperation. The casual touches during cleanup had been agony and relief combined. Close enough to remember, not enough to satisfy. I wanted more. Needed more. The addiction was real and undeniable and consuming me from the inside. But he maintained distance. Professional. Controlled. Pretending the hunger didn't exist, except for the subtle protections. When Lyanna shouldered past me hard enough to bruise, Dane's voice cut across the yard.
Greystone, you're on solo conditioning exercises for the remainder of class. Apparently you need to work on spatial awareness.
Lyanna's face went red. But she didn't argue, just stalked toward the conditioning area. I felt Dane's attention on me. Brief, assessing, making sure I was all right. Then he turned away, back to instruction. The protection made my chest ache. Gratitude and frustration and dangerous warmth combined. Being seen, being defended, mattering to someone who pretended not to care. I watched him deflect Seraphina's attempts at attention. Her requests for private instruction, her suggestions about partnership development. He redirected everything with clinical efficiency.
Your fundamentals are solid, Coldwell. Focus on team coordination. That's not an appropriate request. Assign that question to Master Theron.
Each deflection was professional. Each one was also rejection. And I saw Seraphina's rage building. Saw her watching me with eyes that promised violence. One night in my ransacked quarters, I made a decision. I wasn't going to win the social game. Didn't have the connections, the background, the political skill. Couldn't compete with legacy families and established power. I wasn't going to make Seraphina stop attacking. She'd invested too much. Couldn't afford to lose. Would escalate until one of us broke. But I could be undeniably good at the actual magic. Marcus's words echoed in my head. His casual cruelty in the equipment room. Excellence isn't enough when the game is rigged against you. The sooner you accept that, the easier this will be. He was probably right. Excellence might not trump bloodline. Competence might not overcome politics. The game was rigged. The system designed to maintain power for people who already had it. But if I went beyond excellence, if I became so skilled they couldn't ignore me, so essential they couldn't dismiss me, so undeniably capable that politics became secondary to results, it was a long shot, maybe impossible, but it was all I had, because I couldn't give up, couldn't transfer, couldn't run away. The addiction wouldn't let me. Thoughts of Dane crept in when I wasn't paying attention. The memory of radiant cage. That perfect merging where we'd become one. The consciousness-splitting connection that had felt like coming home to a place I'd never been. The hunger for it consumed me. Constant, burning, undeniable. His whispered promise. Soon we can try casting ritual convergence spells. The desire that meant more than just magic. The need that went deeper than byproduct transfer. The want that colored every thought, every moment, every breath. I was hopelessly addicted to the connection, to him, to the feeling of being seen and understood at levels that went beyond words. And I knew it, recognized it, couldn't stop it. So I had to try, had to fight, had to be so good they couldn't deny me. Because giving up meant leaving, and leaving meant losing him, losing that connection, losing the only thing that made me feel whole. Marcus was probably right. Excellence might not be enough, but going beyond excellence was my only chance. And addiction gave me no choice but to take it. Skill could speak louder than politics. Had to speak louder. Because I couldn't walk away from what Dane and I had found in the chaos and rubble of Corvus City. It was all I had. It had to be enough. So I practiced until my hands shook, until my channels burned, until exhaustion made the world blur. I studied magical theory until the words ran together, until I dreamed in mathematical formulas and binding patterns. I volunteered for every dangerous assignment, every difficult training mission, every opportunity to prove myself in combat rather than politics. It was exhausting. Maybe futile. Seraphina's power was real. Her connections were real. My skill might not matter against that, but it was all I had. Late at night, I wrote in a new journal. Hidden better this time. Warded against theft with binding magic I probably wasn't supposed to know yet. I wrote about falling in love with a man planning to die. About not knowing how to save someone who didn't want saving. About the hunger for connection that was driving me mad. The craving for radiant cage. For that perfect merging where we became one. For his touch. His magic, his presence, the desire colored everything, made focusing difficult, made sleep impossible. I wanted him, needed him, was falling for him despite knowing it would end in crystallized glass and grief. And I couldn't stop, didn't know how to stop, because I'd never learned when to quit. I closed the journal, hid it carefully. Lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow I'd practice more, study more, prove myself more. Tomorrow I'd pretend I wasn't falling apart from wanting someone I couldn't have. Tomorrow I'd be strong. But tonight, in the darkness, I let myself admit the truth. I was in love with Dane Ashforge. and it was going to destroy me. But, in the quiet of my quarters, the weight of my desires pressed down on me like a physical force. I slipped my hand beneath the waistband of my sleep pants, my fingers gliding over my sensitive flesh, imagining it was Dane's touch. My breath hitched as I found myself already wet, my body aching with need. I pictured him, his strong hands, his intense eyes, the way his magic pulsed in time with his heartbeat. My fingers moved in slow, deliberate circles, teasing my as I imagined him above me, his hard and ready. The fantasy was vivid, his body pressing against mine, his breath hot on my neck as he whispered words of encouragement and desire. I slipped 2 fingers inside myself, mimicking the rhythm I craved, the rhythm of our magic merging. My hips lifted off the bed, seeking more depth, more pressure. I could feel the build of but it was distant, a pale imitation of what I truly wanted. My free hand roamed up to my breast, squeezing and kneading, my nip under my touch. "Dane," I whispered, my voice a mix of pleasure and longing. I imagined him to me, his ash flooding my senses, the sensation of our magic intertwining as he filled me completely. My fingers moved faster, my breath coming in short gasps as I chased the climax that would never be enough. I pinched hitting that spot that sent sparks of pleasure through my body. The fantasy of Dane's pulsing inside me, his release triggering mine, pushed me over the edge. I a soft cry, my body convulsing as waves of pleasure washed over me. But it wasn't enough. The release was hollow, a mere shadow of the explosive, all-consuming that came from our magical transfer. My body ached for more, for the real deal. The exchange of ash and ink, the perfect synchronization of our magic and our bodies. I lay there, panting and unsatisfied, my hands still between my legs, coated in my The fantasy had given me a moment's respite, but the hunger remained, gnawing at me, reminding me of what I truly craved. Dane, his touch, his magic, our connection. With a sigh, I withdrew my hand and cleaned myself up, the taste of his name still on my lips, the memory of our time together etched deeply into my soul. I knew that only he could satisfy this hunger. Only he could complete me in a way that no amount of practice or study ever could. And until I had him, this ache would remain, a constant reminder of what I was fighting for.